Teach them that the church is not something to be scared of, and that, oh, I can never speak to them. But no, they want to help you. We are trying to help you. We want to help you grow. Religious life is called to serve God, to serve in many different ways. Our sisters, as I said, serve by bringing souls to Christ through Mary. We ask Our Lady to use us, and a lot of times we use the image of the Annunciation and the Visitation. In the first panel, you see Our Lady waiting, and you see her receiving the Word of God in that time of contemplation. In the second, you see her going out, going to her cousin, taking what she's learned and giving it to others. And that is one of the things we try and do, is what a good portion of our life is. I'm going to stop now. Father Caparas some time. I believe we're going to do questions after, so if you think of something and you'd like to ask, I won't be leaving. But just wanted to give you a little overview. Religious life, my own experiences, and what I've known. What to do and what not to do, as the title says.
Good afternoon, everyone. This segment of the talk, I'd like to talk about priesthood, and I'll be touching upon some of the things that Sister Jessica mentioned in her talk today. First of all, we have a common calling, a common vocation, and that is the universal call to holiness, to sanctity. That has to be the overarching concept that we have to keep in our minds, whether the Lord is calling us to married life, whether He is calling us to the priesthood or religious life, or to single life. We have to remember that our ultimate goal is Christ. Our ultimate goal is to get to heaven. The question is, how is God calling me to live that life of holiness? That's the question that we have to ask. And so, ultimately, that's probably that will determine then the vocation, the state of life that we're going to be living out. So that's one thing that I want all of you to remember. The second thing I want you to remember is that you as parents, you do not own your children. You are stewards of God's gift of life. God has entrusted to you for that short time in your child's life the education and the formation, spiritual formation of your child. And so that's an important thing to remember, because sometimes I think we get this idea, well, this is my child, I want my child to be a doctor, I want my child to be a priest, I want my child to be a nun. You know, that's not up to you. You've been given the gift of life by God. And so you are stewards of that gift. Meaning that eventually you will have to let your child go and allow God then to continue to bring that child to life. So our task, whether we're parents, whether we're teachers, whether we're priests or we're religious, is to nurture this vocation to holiness and to be instrumental in helping our children discern God's call properly. So, like I said, I'd like to talk about the priesthood. First of all, in the priesthood, there are really two types of priesthood. There is the diocesan priesthood, which I am. I belong to the diocesan priesthood, or the secular priesthood, all right? And then there is also priesthood in the religious life, which involves a little bit more of a discernment, because you have to also discern whether or not you're called to religious life. Both are calling from God. Both are calling that involves the church. All right? Now, the priesthood in the religious life, there are two different priesthood in the religious life. There is the active or the apostolic priesthood in religious life, meaning that they have various ministries or they specialize in a particular ministry. And then there is the contemplative priestly life. There are monks or hermits, they live in a contemplative community. They take the vows of poverty, like Sister Jessica. All right, she's a religious. They take the vows of poverty, of chastity and obedience. Certain orders, like Sister Jessica's order, take certain vows that relate to their apostolic life or to their community life. For instance, a Benedictine monk would take the vow of stability, meaning that they would take a vow that they will remain in that community pretty much for the rest of their lives, their natural lives here on earth. So they take a vow. They live in a community. Community is a very important part of religious life. Whether you have 10 other sisters or 20 other sisters or priests and monks and brothers, whether you have 2 or 3, they live in community. All right? And they also have a defining spirituality, meaning that, for instance, Sister Jessica's order, their spirituality is tied into the spirituality of Saint Teresa of Lisieux and to Saint Maximilian Kolbe. All right, that goes, I believe, for the religious sisters and the brothers as well. Okay, so they have a defining spirituality. The Jesuits, their spirituality comes from the spirituality of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, for example. So Franciscans from Saint Francis. They also have a defining mission. For the most part, they're kind of like specialists. They specialize in a particular apostolic or prayer life in the church. You might have a religious order, for example, that focuses on education, focuses on ministry to the poor, all right, or the youth, and so forth. So that's priesthood in the religious life. Now, the diocesan priesthood, which I am, a diocesan priest serves a particular area in the church, all right, for the most part, meaning that he serves a particular diocese, and that he is under the authority of the local bishop. He takes the promise, okay, the promise, not a vow, the promise of obedience and celibacy. And usually he takes that promise, similar to religious life, he takes the vows, as a witness of his dedication to God and to his people. He also takes that promise for the sake of his ministry. All right? So basically, a diocesan priest, another way of looking at it, is that they are parish priests. They're the ones, I like to think, we're the ones in the trenches. All right? We take care of the nitty-gritty stuff in the parishes. We administer the sacraments. We take care of the sick. All right? We're there with the people who are living in the world. All right? We don't, so if you were to use an analogy, you have the religious life who are the specialists. All right? And you have the parish priest as the general practitioner, if you want to look at it in that particular way. All right? We have to be the jack of all trades. All right? So that's, again, an overview of the difference between priesthood in the religious life and priesthood in the diocesan priesthood. So let me just give you some ideas then of what are some ways we can nurture vocations. All right? First of all, vocations are nurtured at home, and I'd like to put that in parentheses, because home can be certainly your own home where your children live. All right? But home can also be your parish, your community, your family. All right? So you are the primary educators of your children.